Hi guys, and welcome to this critical album review of Ignite by 42 Decibel. Just as a disclaimer, this critical album review isn't because I'm angry at the album or anything like that. I think I'm probably going to just do critical album reviews in general from now on, because one of the things that I originally wanted to do when I started up the AC/DC legacy was obviously to help bands, and I feel like doing a critical album review and giving some constructive criticism is actually helpful, you know, as well as giving exposure and stuff like that. So that's kind of going to be the theme of these critical album reviews from now on, and I hope you can sort of appreciate the positivity in that. So if you don't know who 42 Decibel are, they're an Argentinian AC/DC and Rose Tattoo influenced band, churning out raw mid-70s hard rock and roll. So yeah, they've got the new album out, Ignite, which is their 4th album, I think. And yeah, let's just get straight into it.
From the bottle to the ground. Getting thirsty. Till it's found.
So this one starts off a little slow. The riff is okay, but there just isn't really enough to hook you straight into the album. But it does have a good chorus. I like the backing vocals, and the solo section after the chorus before going into the second verse is really good. And then the second chorus, and again another good second solo, which kind of acts as the outro. It's nothing special for the opening track, but it's a pretty good song.
Desire satisfier. Boil my fire. Desire satisfier.
This one's got a pretty good riff, good guitar work and solos again. Overall, it's an alright song, but nothing absolutely amazing. I think the chorus isn't as catchy as some of the others on the album, and I don't think the verses are particularly great either. It's a good track if you just want to hear some sort of raw power, but personally for me, it's not the best. I think it kind of needs to be a little bit more catchy in areas. The initial riff, like I say, is quite good, but then I feel like there could have been some more sort of catchy elements to some of the melodies later on.
Here's a traitor. The main traitor. Looking for kids to find. Main traitor.
So this is a slightly weaker song than what I was expecting for the 3rd track. It's got a bit of a basic riff, nothing catchy or unique, and there's nothing really that stands out about the chorus either. And the guitar tones also don't sound as good on this one for some reason. I can't quite work out why. I think maybe they might be a little bit flat. Another criticism I do have for the whole album in terms of the production is the drum tones. In some places they kind of seem a little, I don't know, maybe a little flat also, and not quite sort of very heavy. And a lot of sort of other bands like Airborne and stuff, the drums tend to kind of wrap around the song quite a bit, and here they seem very sort of flat. Not, I wouldn't say in every song, but certain songs like this one seem to stand out more than others. I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but personally to me they don't sound amazing.
'Cause I got off the hook.
So this has got a really nice riff, and it's one of those songs where the guitar groove and beat really carries it along. The song builds up and gets a little heavier towards the end, but it's generally a sort of softer, groovier track. I do like it though, and it's probably one of my favourites on the album. I think if it had a more sort of memorable chorus, that would probably take it to the next level. This is the lead single, and it's definitely one of the strongest songs on the album. It's got good riffs, and I love where the first riff branches into the second riff in the intro, and that little hook in the second riff is really nice. It's got a decent chorus and a great sort of solo and bridge sections with good guitar work. The artwork for that album comes from this song, and I do like the artwork. Not that it matters to the music, but yeah, the album artwork is nice.
Toxic is a rotten expression. Got the desire.
This is a pretty good song overall. It's got an interesting riff that almost kind of reminds me of like sort of early ZZ Top. And as the song progresses, it has a lot of Cold Steel Rider vibes about it, which I really like because Cold Steel Rider is one of my favourite 42 Decibel songs. Again though, the sound of sort of the drums on this one again seems, especially kind of towards the first half of the song, doesn't seem brilliant. Again, I'm not sure why, I can't quite put my finger on it. But the song is strong overall, especially with all the sort of guitar. There's loads going on and loads crammed into this song, changes in tempo, and it makes for quite a thrilling listen.
I'm feeling like Zeus.
I think this is the weakest song on the album, and there isn't really anything at all that stands out to me. The initial riff is kind of interesting and seems to have a little something to it, but the verse riff is very plain and basic, just literally with sort of 2 chords. The chorus isn't catchy, it just brings back that initial riff. And yeah, overall there's just nothing particularly strong about this song, and I think it just kind of makes it quite repetitive and skippable. There's kind of some good guitar work, comes in on the final chorus, but that's probably the only praise I can give it, unfortunately.
You don't know what I've been. You don't know what I've seen. Don't push it, let it go. I'll give you the world.
This is better than Feeling Like Zeus, but it's certainly not one of the strongest tracks on the album. It does, however, have a really good solo, and this is definitely the best part of the song. Other than that, it's got some good bass in the verses and quite a lot of raw power again, if you're a fan of that. This has got strong AC/DC vibes, which I really like. Live Wire, Rock and Roll Singer, Overdose, those sorts of songs. It's got a catchy chorus, which I also really like. A great little solo. I think 42 Decibel should definitely make use of backing vocals more, because some of the strongest choruses on the album feature backing vocals. I don't think the verse and the verses and the verse riff in this song is strong enough for it to be my favourite track, but it's definitely one of the strongest songs on the album. The initial riff is half decent, but it does continue into the verse though, which I think it would have been nice to probably branch into a different riff for the verse. I'm always a fan of that. And I think with this song being carried by that one riff, it does kind of get a little boring and repetitive after a while. There is a lot of other nice guitar work though that comes in, and the song has a lot of power to it, which is good, but I don't think it's a standout song. So overall, I think this album is pretty good, but it's not as good as Rollin' in Town, which is personally my favourite 42 Decibel album. That has a lot of strong standout songs on it, and I feel like this album, I've listened to it quite a few times, but I don't really feel like this album has many instant classics on it or new 42 Decibel favourites. I would probably say Hard Rock and Roll is also better than this album, as it has a lot of 42 Decibel favourites on it. But I do think since then 42 Decibel have refined their style slightly and have grown as a band, and the quality on this album overall is probably stronger than on Hard Rock and Roll, because compared to that album, the songs are sort of more trimmed down, which I do like. Trimming all the fat off is quite often a great thing. However, in contrast to that, it is also nice to see one or two sort of 5-minute plus songs on an album. But seeing as 42 Decibel have done loads of 5-minute plus long songs, I'm not too bothered. I think this is probably the most consistent and strongest album overall, aside from Rollin' in Town, and it's definitely better than Overloaded, which I personally think is the weakest 42 Decibel album so far. So for a rating, I would probably give Ignite maybe a 6.5 or 7 out of 10 at a push. For me, the standout songs are Raven, Off the Hook, and possibly Shotgun Beer and Poison as well. The album in general has great guitar work, and possibly the biggest praise I can give it is that the sound of the production and sort of the mix of the songs is actually nice to listen to than Airborne's new album. Considering 42 Decibel also recorded this album live, the same as Airborne, they've done a good job. I don't know who mixed the album, but they've actually probably done a slightly better job than Grammy Award winner Dave Cobb. So yeah, like I said, I do prefer Rollin' in Town, which has some really strong songs in it, like Burnin' Down the Road, Midnight Teaser, and Cold Steel Rider. But Ignite is overall a decent album and definitely worthy of a listen, especially if you're into Rose Tattoo, early AC/DC, and other 70s bands like Thin Lizzy, for example. Personally, for me, I think this style of rock has never been my favourite compared to the sort of AC/DC's late 70s and early 80s sound. But 42 Decibel do pull off this sort of mid-70s sound really, really well. And if you're into that and you haven't, heard of 42 Decibel before, then definitely check them out if you haven't already. I think that's going to about wrap up this review. So I hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to like, subscribe and share.